Hello and welcome to Lab 4 in CSE 260L. In this lab overview, we're going to go over the main concepts that you will need to do and understand to do the lab. So let's start. I will start with the screen. So what we're doing in this is you're going to begin working with conditionals. So the paths that you're going to go and the different ways that what can happen on each path, and then how do you do that in Java. And then we're also going to look at the difference between testing equality or comparison for a built-in type that we saw in Lab 2, so that a built-in type, primitive built-in is a Boolean character or number versus a class like a string. And they have two different ways. They are not compared the same way. All right. So what we're going to do is in parentheses is going to be a test. And that test in the conditional is going to evaluate Boolean, true or false. And that's a little b Boolean. The test is always in parentheses. For built-in primitive types, you're going to use greater than or equal, less than or equals. To test for equality, you use two equal signs, not one. And then not equal is an exclamation point and an equal. And then we'll go over this a little bit with objects and classes, and that is the string name dot equals, and we'll go over that in the end, and why using the equal will not get you the answer that you expect. All right, so in Java, one-way selection. One-way selection, you have a test, in parentheses, age is greater than 65. It has to evaluate to true or false, have what's going to happen. If it's yes, and then what happens if it's no. So in this one, if age is greater than 65, you're eligible for a vaccine. If not, now what you want to note here is they come together afterwards. So in a conditional, there's always, you do come back, so that conditional is true for a segment of it. So what does that look like in Java? So in Java, you have the statement if, open parentheses, whatever the test is that you're going to do. So that condition is evaluate to true or false. If age is greater than 65, what are you going to do? You can register and get a vaccine. Okay? So you can do this in two different ways. One is you can do an if, and then you can do one Java statement. What I did not include here is a semicolon should be after the what to do, because that if condition is going to continue until there's a semicolon. So if for some reason you happen to put a semicolon on this line, nothing will happen if it's true or false, because you said if the condition is true, do nothing. So a safer way to do it in your if condition is to put it in a block. So a block is anything surrounded with curly braces, and then you can put what to do in that. So that's called a selection, as we saw the example. Often you have more choices than that. So a two-way selection could be if age is greater than 65, you're eligible for a vaccine if that's yes. If that's no, then you can sign up for notifications. So if you saw in this previous one, nothing happens if age is not greater than 65, right? You just join up right after at the close of this curly bracket or at this semicolon. However, in a two-way, you can do one of two things. There's actually going to be code if age is greater than is true, and then different code if age is greater than 65 is false. And then again, note that they will come back together. So in this one, how does this look in Java? If you have the condition, what you're going to do by a semicolon, and then the word else. If and else are reserved words. And then what you're going to do if it's not true. So if age is greater than 65, you can get a vaccine, register for a vaccine. Else, you can sign up for notifications. You can get a vaccine. Alternative is a good way if there's only one thing you're going to do if the condition's true, because the if ends with the semicolon. If there'll be multiple actions that you'll take or multiple lines of Java code, or if you just want to be safe and secure, use the curly brackets. The formatting for the curly brackets can vary. Just use the auto IntelliJ format Some people put the curly bracket, else curly bracket, do it this way. I don't care, but just format it from the IntelliJ. So what are you going to do if the condition's greater than 65 vaccine, else sign up for notifications. So that's a two-way. All right. The next is a nested if else, and I have a typo there, sorry. So what happens here is to have multiple options. And you want to be careful, and you really want to use formatting, and this is where it's really important. So we saw formatting in Lab 3 with being able to format your code, because that will, you can visually look at your code and see if there's a problem with how you set up your ifs by doing that. And in the next video, I'll go over some examples. So in here, if age is greater than 65, vaccine. If not, then we have another test. Are you greater than 16? Sign up for text messages. If not, nothing, because right now you can't get the COVID vaccine if you're less than 16. So in this case, you're having a nested situation where you do one and then you do another test. So in Java, what does that look like? That looks like if you have a condition, what you can do, semicolon, else if, what you're going to do. So if you're greater than 65, and register for vaccine, else if, and I missed the condition in here. There should be a condition. I missed these in both of these. So if there's another condition here, else if you're greater than 16, sign up for text messages. Then if there's something else you can do if you're less than 16, you can also list that there or just drop, and that's why it's in gray. Similarly, just using the brackets instead. So you want to think about is comparing strings. So in strings, you cannot use the double equal, because a string is actually a reference parameter. That's what's stored in memory, which is just a memory address. So you may have two different strings, both that say Friday, but they're stored in two different memory. So what equal is going to do is compare those memory addresses. So you're not going to get what you want. So what you actually use is something called dot equals. And strings have a lot of additional operators. We'll see that in the next video. It's also this dot equals ignore case, dot equal. So there's a lot that you can do with this dot equals operation to see if they both are Friday. You don't care whether they're stored in the same memory or not. So that's why you want to use dot equals. A lot early on, you just default to that equal because it makes sense. All right, so if you look at the lab in here, you'll see that there's an overview, a really probably better explanation than I gave of how this works. Notice here in the, let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. All right. So you'll notice here that we have the one-way selection. If age is greater than 18, then we just have one line of code and a semicolon. That's when the condition ends. Now, it says it's good habit for curly brackets. It's a good habit when you're new. When you get a little more experienced, if there's just one line, you're actually telling when reading your code later, I only meant for there to be one line. So it depends where you're at. And the two-way selection, we have if age is less than 18, print out again, we have the semicolon, but you can have multiple lines, else. And then finally, we have the three-way or nested if. If age is less than 18, else if age is less than 120. One thing you're going to want to make sure when you're using these is as you go through these statements that it's going to always do this one first and then this second one. So you could end up with a set of conditions where you never get to the last one. So you want to be clear about that. Also make sure there's no semicolon at the end of the block. It's irrelevant. Look at the common pitfalls, and then you're going to do program 4A, which is dealing with what people pay to get into Kings Island. And in program 5, you're going to build on this. So you want to make sure you fully understand it. Notice too that they're using nice formatted output, and also that you're using the right kind of prompt on the same line as you're doing to get the answer, and then a space here. So program 4B has a little bit more that you're going to do. So what you're going to submit is program 4, which would be your 4B, I think. Nope, final program to be submitted. Okay, so you're going to take 4B, make these final changes to it, and that's what you're going to submit. And then test your program here. This is what I will be testing your with. You should run these and make sure they all work. And if you have any problems, let me know. Thank you and enjoy.